In order to subdue the great demon and sign a contract with the underworld, Master, the Bodhisattva of the Land Treasury, personally took action to subdue the great demon. My master didn't know where he had gone. In order to find him and unravel my own identity, I had to continue moving forward. Chapter 1. The beginning of the story, Unsolvable Connection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother told me that before I was born, there was an old Taoist at home. As soon as the Taoist entered the house, he congratulated their two elders. My grandparents didn't understand and asked him what was going on. The Taoist said that their two elders would soon have a grandson, and he was still a kid. Seeing my grandparents still suspecting that the old Taoist had told me everything about my family's situation, my dad doesn't often stay at home and sometimes doesn't even come home during the Chinese New Year. At the beginning, my grandparents were very worried about their only child and often called him to inquire about his situation, such as how his work was and whether he had a girlfriend, until one time when he hadn't returned home for 3 years, his grandparents couldn't sit still. Their only son hasn't returned home for several years, and even when he calls, he ends up hastily with a few words. He always excuses himself by being busy with work, and sometimes he can't even get through the phone. This situation is unbearable for any parent. In the end, he had an argument with the second eldest son, and to this day, he hasn't contacted the second eldest son. When grandparents thought that life would be like this in the future, this old Taoist appeared. Upon hearing the old Taoist explain the situation of his family in detail, my grandparents finally believed in him. Just ask him when they will have a grandson, and the old Taoist said his grandson will come the next day. At the beginning, the two elders were still puzzled. Their son didn't even get married and didn't even know if he had a girlfriend. Can this grandson come home the next day? They were wondering if they were scammers, just to cheat out a meal. That old Taoist really told the truth about the situation. The old Taoist said that he will know when his grandson comes back tomorrow. He is really his own grandson. That old Taoist is also mysterious, and he can't even manipulate the second elder. The old Taoist changed the topic and asked if it was possible to have a meal. Grandma took Grandpa aside to discuss it. Grandpa's initial intention was to just drive away the old Taoist, so Grandma asked him to wait and see. Even if he was a scammer, he would still tell us everything about the family. Moreover, this old Taoist has just arrived at this place and doesn't have much time to inquire about these things. Moreover, these things are just gossip. When we talk inside and outside the village, it becomes a topic of discussion and we can just haha and go there. No one will take it seriously. In the end, his grandparents decided to keep him overnight and have a meal. If what the old Taoist said was true, they would treat him well. If everything he said was false, they would just drive him away. The old Taoist's eyes lit up as he devoured the whole table of food, leaving his grandparents feeling uneasy again. Grandpa had the urge to drive him away directly after dinner. He started chatting about his daily routine and learned that the old Taoist came from a secluded Taoist temple in the Chilean mountains. He had been practicing with his master and senior brothers since I could remember. In the past, his master and his senior brothers went down the mountain to fight against Japan and never returned. He waited for 20 years. Finally, taking advantage of my own strength, I descended the mountain and wandered around in all directions. The next day, it was almost noon and I didn't see the shadow that the old Taoist had spoken of me. My grandparents couldn't bear it anymore, so the old Taoist told them not to worry and they would arrive soon. Before I could finish speaking, a car parked outside the yard, and the person who got off was my dad. It wasn't until I saw him carrying a child out of the back seat that the old couple were all dumbfounded. In the end, my dad only left one word, that he was close, and he would tell my grandparents that he would come back in the future, so he left again. My grandmother looked at me in her arms and was also stunned for a while. She looked at my grandfather and was speechless. My grandfather didn't know what to say anymore and kept looking at me. I was stunned for a while before my grandparents realized that this old Taoist really has the ability. Immediately looking at the old Taoist, it was obvious that my grandparents didn't really believe that I was their son's biological child. The old Taoist closed his eyes and nodded. Seeing that the old Taoist was also serious, my grandparents quickly thanked him. The old Taoist sat with his eyes closed for a long time and told my grandparents that I was destined to be extraordinary. Although there were many trivial matters, I was still safe. Then he said he wanted to take me as his disciple and asked my grandparents if they agreed. My grandparents were also convinced by the old Taoist's methods and agreed to become my master at that time. Then the old Taoist decided to live in our village and cultivate me. Finally, he also repaired a small Taoist temple for the old Taoist. At first, when the other villagers heard that an old Taoist had come to my house, many people came to my house and asked him to help with things. This old Taoist also understood the world and gave all the money he earned to my grandparents. In 1 go and 2 go, it spread throughout the 10 miles and 8 villages. I have been learning from the old Taoist since I was 2 years old, and at that time I was not very sensible. Anyway, my grandmother told me that I was truly a disciple, and I started running around with the old Taoist since I started to remember. If something inexplicable happens in someone's family, they will come to ask their master, and I will follow him to solve it. When there is nothing to do, my master teaches me how to recognize characters and Taoist techniques. I can proficiently draw talismans and recite mantras around the age of 10. Of course, my master was also very strict with my exercise, so much so that from childhood to adulthood, my physical fitness was much better than that of my peers, and the culture of Taoism is not less than others. I am also somewhat famous in the 10 miles and 8 townships, as I come and go. A big event happened in the year I was 16 years old. Chapter 2. Eight-tailed Firefox, new to campus. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 3. Emerging from the rookie and showcasing skills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 4. Entering the campus and starting the investigation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After opening the door, a wave of energy rushed towards me, leaving the room pitch black. Because it was daytime and I could see the contours of some furniture, Zhao Lie's daughter squatted next to the bed. I took out a bundle of ropes from my bag and handed them to Wang Jiangwo, who understood how to take the ropes. I slowly walked over, and Wang Jiangwo followed closely behind me. At this moment, Zhao Lie's daughter suddenly rushed forward at lightning speed. I dodged sideways and pressed her to the ground. The gloves touched her body, emitting black smoke. Zhao Lie's daughter also screamed in pain. Come on, I'll hold her down. Call you a horse, shout, shut up. Otherwise, I'll kill you now, young master. I slapped the back of her head and said upon hearing this, Wang Jiangwo immediately came over and tied her up with a rope. After tying her up, I threw her onto the bed. I walked to the door and turned on the light. At this moment, Zhao Lie's daughter called out again. I walked to the bedside and Zhao Lie and her wife also walked in. Zhao Lie's wife rushed over to see her daughter like this, but Zhao Lie stopped her. She's not your daughter yet, don't go over yet. I turned to Zhao Lie's wife and said, do you think it hurts from the light or from hitting you with my gloves? I looked at Zhao Lie's daughter and asked. She looked at the gloves in my hand with fear and answered in a hoarse voice, Glove, it seems that you still have a bit of self-awareness. Be frank and lenient, resist and be strict. First, tell me everything about the situation completely, and then I will send you to reincarnation. If you don't cooperate, you should know the end, right? I looked at her expressionless. Really? She asked in confusion. I nodded in response. We were originally hiding in an unoccupied building, but they broke into it that night, and then I found a possession. It seems there's more than one of you. What about the other ghosts? How did you die? I continued to ask. I don't know anything else, I just remember waking up and becoming a ghost, and I don't know how I died. I remember going to that building with my girlfriends and then going back to the dormitory to sleep. When I woke up, I found out I was here. Okay, since you don't seem to be lying, then I'll send you straight to reincarnation. The female ghost attached to Zhao Liya's daughter quickly thanked me when she heard that I was going to send her for reincarnation. I pinched my fingers and recited a mantra of rebirth, and Zhao Liya's daughter lay straight down. I took off my gloves and patted my hands, saying, "End of work." Zhao Liya is confused. Is this? It's over now. Just a few words and it's over. At this moment, Wang Jiangwo said, "Are you okay?" My family was just starting to speak well and still didn't accept it. Let his master slap him honestly. What about my daughter? How's my daughter doing? Zhao Liya's wife shouted at this moment, "Your daughter is fine. Open the curtains and let the sunlight in. She will wake up in a while." After opening the curtains according to my instructions, Zhao Liya's daughter slowly opened her eyes for about half an hour. After seeing their daughter open their eyes, the two of them quickly approached to inquire about the situation. "All right, don't disturb her. Let her rest first. She is very weak now. Wang Jiangwo, called your daughter over and I'll ask her something." Zhao Liya and his wife quickly thanked me when they heard me speak, and Wang Jiangwo also called her daughter over. "Have you ever been to an abandoned building?" I looked at Wang Jiangwo's daughter and asked, "Yes, have anyone else been there besides you two?" "There are two more, still studying at school. Today is the weekend, and our school is on vacation." I lowered my head and pondered. The ghosts that possessed Wang Yuanyuan and Zhao Mengyi came from the same place, which proves that there were more than just these two. If both four people are possessed, then there is no reason why the other two are not possessed. Can you contact your other two roommates now? I quickly said. Wang Yuanyuan immediately took out her phone and called one of her roommates. One of the roommates couldn't connect, so I switched to another one, but neither roommate was able to connect. "Are you still fighting?" Wang Yuanyuan asked. "No need to fight, they may have had an accident. Today is Sunday and tomorrow happens to be Monday. How about reporting to school tomorrow, Wang Jiangwo?" I turned to ask Wang Jiangwo. "Sure, you can report anytime." "Okay, that's it. I'll go report tomorrow. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot one thing. Zhao Liya, this is my card number. Just put the reward on my card, and as for the amount you give, you can watch it yourself. I don't have any concept of how much money is more or less." After cleaning up Zhao Liya's family affairs, Wang Jiangwo sent me back home and told my grandparents about going to school. They agreed very much. The next day, Wang Jiangwo pulled me and his daughter to school. Because Wang Jiangwo is a shareholder of this school, it is also very easy to apply for admission. After filling in some information, he went to tidy up the dormitory. After tidying up the dormitory, I went to the classroom to report and was assigned to the class next to Wang Yuanyuan. It's because Wang Yuanyuan is a school flower level figure and her family is particularly wealthy, so her arrival in our class caused a considerable sensation. My desk mate excitedly said, "Sleeping trough, Yifan, you can come across this good thing on your first day here. You really enjoyed it, TSK TSK TSK. Hey, why did she come this way? She shouldn't have come to find me, right?" "Perhaps," I helplessly supported my forehead. "Chin Yifan, I have something to tell you." My desk mate was already confused at the time. Just as my classmates and Wang Yuanyuan left the classroom with fierce wolf-like eyes, even walking into the hallway attracted many expressions from others who wanted to eat me. "How's it going?" I asked first. "There's still no news." Wang Yuanyuan shook her head and said, "All right, thank you very much." After I returned to the class, everyone in the class looked at me like a pack of hungry wolves. "Hey, what's wrong? Why do I feel a murderous aura?" "You don't know?" Lu Kai asked in confusion. "Ah. Should I know something?" I pretended not to know and said, "Wang Yuanyuan is the school flower, the dream goddess of half the school boys. You dare to directly invite the school flower in front of them, and it was the school flower who took the initiative to invite you. There must be some tricks in this. Speak up." Lu Kai looked at me seriously and said, "We both know each other, and I just asked Wang Yuanyuan to do me a favor." Is that so weird? Ah, it's like this. Okay, you've escaped a disaster with me. For others, you should take care of yourself. Lu Kai sighed. This Lu Kai is the first person I met at this school. After chatting, I found out that he still lives in the same dormitory as me, and he has learned a lot of gossip about this school from his mouth. Chapter 5. Campaign. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 6. Black and White Impermanence. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 7. Coming Back. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 8. Reunion. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Are you my dad? I asked in confusion. Nonsense, I'm not your father. Who is your father? You're asking. Sigh, your father, and I don't have a good deal with you either. I've been sending you to your grandparents since I was young, and I haven't really cared about you. You also need to know that your father was forced at that time. His career was on the rise, and many people wanted to deal with him. Moreover, your mother just gave birth to you for a short time at that time. We had no choice but to send you to your grandparents. Now that your father and my career have stabilized, we are preparing to take you all to my place. Chen Jingua. Hello uncle, my name is Lu Kai, and my father is in the clothing business. Lu Kai flattered. Ah, you're Lao Lu's son, my dad said. Why, do you know my dad? I whispered in Lu Kai's ear. Wachao, who doesn't know your father? The emperor of the business world in City A, who doesn't know your father in City A? After hearing this, my grandparents said, we are used to living in this old yard. We can't get used to the urban environment. If you want to go, take Xiaofan with you. It's really good to let Xiaofan go to see his mother. You can all come back to see it when you are free. Of course, when my grandparents heard my dad's words, they also recognized him, and my dad quickly apologized to my grandparents. In the end, my grandparents also forgave my dad. It's not dad, you've said so much. After all, what are you doing? I asked. I really can't say what to do, but in short, your father and my company have everything. Besides, your father and I have come a long way, and it has been quite easy. Your uncle is my big brother, and all the achievements along the way were given by your uncle. Now that your uncle has retired and no longer cares about the business world, he has entrusted all the industries to me. You have a good eye, and I have only been in office for a year. It was because I need to stand firm that I delayed coming back for a year. My father sighed. Our family happily finished their meal, and my dad said to me, kid, I came back not only to see your grandparents, but also to find you. We should also go back to find your mother. Your mother doesn't know how much she wants to see you. I feel like if I can't find you again, your mother might even suffer from depression. Is it that serious? I asked with a smile. I don't know, anyway, your mother talks about you every day. My dad and I went to the city, and Lu Kai stayed at my house to accompany my grandparents. My father drove me to a building in the city of A, and the top of the building was clearly hung with the 4 characters of Chen Group. In my heart, I roast. Is it necessary to keep such a high profile? As soon as my dad and I walked into the company building, many people walked over to greet him, and he also responded one by one. This indicates that my dad's reputation in the company is not average, and I also heard many people discussing something. Employee A, hey, who is this little kid brought back by Mr. Chen? It looks quite similar to Mr. Chen. Employee B, don't you know that Mr. Chen and his wife have a son, and Mr. Chen's wife nags him every day about finding a son for her? My dad took me into the company elevator and he pressed the button on the highest floor, saying in a slutty tone, I didn't know you were at home this time. The first 2 times when it was almost stable, your mother still shamelessly followed me home to find you. After searching for you a few times, you were not at home, so she just asked me to inquire about you. Finally, when I found out that you had already gone to school, we decided not to disturb you. We will look for you when you come back from vacation. By the way, when you arrive at the office, don't rush in. Wait for me to let you in before you go in. Do you hear me? Give your mother a surprise. Okay, I'll listen to you. You're already such a big person, and you're still doing this kind of thing, I said helplessly after my dad pushed the door into the office. He heard my mom say, "Did you see your son when you came home this time?" "Son, I didn't see it, but this time I brought someone over, you must be happy," I heard my father say in a tone of gratitude. "Who else can make me happy except when I see my son?" "Honestly, I didn't say that. You just need to see someone else." "Why should I see them?" my mother said impatiently. "Can I still deceive you, wife? Come on in." I heard my dad call me, so I pushed the door open and entered the office. "Wife, look who this is," I asked. My mother was momentarily stunned when she first saw me, and then she glanced at my dad as if she was trying to determine something. She then brushed her brush and threw it at me. "Son, it's really my son. You don't know how much Mom misses you." After saying that, my mom burst into tears when I saw my mother, whom I had never met before. I didn't know what to say for a moment, and who would have thought that this woman, who looked only in her 20s, was almost 40 years old and had even given birth. "No, Dad, is this really my own mother?" I asked skeptically, holding my mother. She suddenly released her hand and slapped me on the back of the head. "Stinky kid, I'm not your biological mother." "Who is it?" Just when I saw you for the first time, I asked this brainless question. "Are you looking for a beating? Come on, let Mom take a closer look." My mom just hugged my face and watched for a while. "Son, you've suffered, it's just us who can't stand you." "It's okay, Mom. Isn't your son doing well? My grandparents and my master have taken good care of me." "I heard your dad say you've been learning from an old Taoist for quite some time, haven't you? Isn't that all some deceptive tricks? What's there to believe?" My mom said disdainfully. Then I took off half of my sleeve and showed it to them. They were stunned when they saw the scar on my body. I put on my clothes and said, "How do you think I got this scar?" Then I recounted everything that had happened in the past few years in a period of time in detail. My dad and mom have also been silent. Obviously they don't believe it. It's absurd, isn't it? If you don't believe it, you can ask Chen Jiangwo and Zhao Liye. I dealt with the affairs of Zhao Liye's family. My dad and mom still showed an expression of disbelief. "Do you still believe it?" "Forget it, you will know that what I said is true then." Okay, everything my son says is true, okay. Lao Chen, today is the first day our son meets us. You contacted the restaurant to prepare a table and called your parents over. Son, you didn't know that your grandparents were still clamoring to find you, my mother said happily, looking just like a little girl. Then my father first called my grandparents and then went back to my hometown to pick up Lu Kai and my grandparents. My mother also took me to pick up my grandparents. I heard my father say that my mother was born into a famous family with the surname Luan. It is said that my grandfather started inheriting the family property when he was young, and during the time when my father had an accident, it was also my grandfather who helped me safely get through that crisis. Chapter 9. Zhong Kui. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Ko Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 10. Luan Fan Gang. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Ko Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text.